going. We went there with that. My mom's going, my brother's going, my sister's going, and my sister's kids, my brother's kids, my kids. We were going with 50 family.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, a lot of family from over there?
My dad did, yeah. And his one cousin has lived here, he goes back and forth all the time, but I think transplants from all over the country are going to Ireland.
Nice.
Yeah. Because my cousin still lives on the farm where my dad's dad.
Wow.
Borough.
How long are you staying?
I'm going to one first, like number 4 days, and then I'm going to Ireland. I guess I'll be there next Friday.
That's cool. It's gonna sound like a 2-weeker, man. It's only 2 weeks.
It's a 4-day time.
Should be. I think a trip of a lifetime. That's gonna cost a coin. Anytime I find I bring the family.
Well, I to me and my wife and my son, my daughter, and
All right, let's start at
we went there and went to Italy. Wow, so
it's a nice one to tackle on a.
You always have to pay for it.
Kind of smooth.
Yeah.
This one, I think she did more than anything. She snuck them in there.
And that the whole time my daughter's bringing boyfriends, all of a sudden, family's got 3 more.
She's 21.
Mm-hmm.
She's coming up with her school year. Just she stayed. It's the second year in a row. She doesn't. She can do something. I believe that she's doing something.
Okay, and if they have years like
Yeah, when she's in that season, when you're at the office, side love her basketball. When the season, when the school year ended last year, she told me, she said, "They like this so much." That's why she stayed. That's why she stayed. So this year she wanted to take organic chemistry and some lab course that go you take in the 3rd year. Organic chemistry is that's on the block where most students drop out, but she
my roommate, awesome. My roommate, my junior year, so we're in 3rd year, is a doctor now, right? But organic chem. That was it. That was it. He locked himself in the room.
But you know what? She's in school. She's in she's up with she's better not go to she's up there by herself. It's 2 years old. It's going to be the area down. It's curious. It's beautiful. She's got a dog. She said that about me. It's meaningful.
Wow.
Yeah, we're real close.
Yeah, she's motivated.
She's motivated. She's
Gotta be.
she's working on she knows that's her job. Her job is school. But she's
Part is over.
So until we get on there, if I should do a picture right now, no, I'm going to lie because we might not be on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 short.
laid out on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
Right, right. Right. Buy new stuff.
That's all you know.
Yeah.
Just don't lose your bags. That was my, my experience in December flying in Paris. My luggage with all of my clothes, all of the toiletries, and my wife's like makeup and all that stuff didn't come off.
Oh my God.
And I don't need to go through the whole story, but we picked it up 7 days later at the airport on the way back. I was very sick.
Oh, my Lord.
And I spent a lot of
It's always
time.
something.
Yeah,
Spent a lot of money.
spent a lot of time trying to break out my broken French to talk to people there, to try to find my bags and airplanes. Yeah, I love Paris.
So we know
Yeah, Paris is great.
it's kind of, we had dinner.
It's better with clothes.
Yes.
Yeah, for the same place 4 days in a row.
I had dinner the other hour on our anniversary, all the state, and now she's got us booked at some restaurant along the road state. Yeah.
We don't have a great. I couldn't go to the tower or any of those I can see because we happened to go there and that weekend where they were blowing Paris up with all of the
Yeah.
yes, things.
Yeah.
So we did three days. It was 3 nights Paris, 3 nights Rome. And Paris, I think, is great.
I was never there. It was, I really loved it. We stayed, I could see that without. We stayed in an old, I'll call it a program, but it was all today's amenities. It's all, it was absolutely.
Oh, that's your
It was great. We got a cruise. Full that day.
Need a bag of popcorn?
Be careful about that chair.
Yeah, that's what my wife wants.
Italy's
to do.
great. Yeah, Italy's great. I told her I wouldn't be able
A lot cheaper, you and your wife.
to.
A lot cheaper than just you and your wife.
She's the one that books me. She makes, I told her on expectation, I'm gonna go back to, deep in the sand, and working out my left arm.
Yeah, right.
I'll feel my-
All inclusive.
All my clients spend 7 months out of the year. You watch The Sopranos?
A little bit, usually,
Are one of you Mike?
I am.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Good to meet you
First,
first.
thank you for letting us in.
Oh, no problem.
It's getting hot out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, usually for board and commission meetings, we only open the rear entrance. But thanks.
I did talk to John, he said you do need to get in more trouble. It'd be beneficial for his business.
Yeah, he needs the billables.
The guy in the end, in the members only jacket, who they kills Tony. That's my client. He lives here. He lives in Pendle.
Really?
Pendle Pizza. If you
I mean,
guys-
that's really the guy?
That's the guy.
That's
If
the
you,
guy.
if you go into Pendle
That's
Pizza,
right.
Still wearing a coat?
if you go into Pendle Pizza, you will see it's lined with like Satoshi stuff.
Ah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
That's crazy.
That's so funny, that's what, I thought he was really, I just like him.
No, it's him. He wasn't an actor, they just, I forget, they found, like, they saw some of you.
Yeah,
You
that's
to be in
right,
this.
that's great.
That is crazy.
He's Italian, he spends a couple months here and then the rest. His brother runs Pizza Grid.
A lot of money.
Yeah. It'll be fabulous, but.
All right, so you guys got your phone.
You'll come in at the end of this.
Yeah.
I like the borough down there too. Nice after being in this.
I haven't been in Bethel, but I know that we're, right now, I'll just say, ladies, so, it's just that we can that bomb, which, all. And, that's why, I don't have any, until I get past all this first, I get with more on my
Got an okay from Philadelphia today. You see that? Got an okay from Philadelphia today for Shaw.
I didn't look at my email. Okay, so that's.
I started putting Eric Hunter on my everyday list.
Is that all you're waiting for?
Well, now I gotta get his stuff to Middletown and then send it to you. Should be quick from here.
By the time I get back.
Yeah. Yes. It was getting to that point where you
Get
could
on
push him so
one,
hard to get
but-
managed.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
This door is.
Yeah.
Mine works.
There you go. All right, we got it. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to bring this session of the Morrisville Zoning Hearing Board to order, Monday, August 5th, 2019. First up, I'm sorry, we're going to have to bore everyone for a minute or two while we do our annual reorg here. So may I have a nomination for chair, please?
Yes, I nominate Steve.
I accept. And
And I nominate Mr. O'Neill for secretary.
well, hold on, one step at a time. You have to second it.
I second.
Okay. May I have a vote on my nomination for
Yes.
chairperson?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
I think it's me again. Once again, I'm at the top in something that doesn't pay. And may I have a nomination for secretary, please?
I nominate Neil.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 We have a board.
Very good.
Congratulations.
All right. First up, Mr. Renominated or re-elected secretary. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Chairman Steve Schmelzer,
Here.
Secretary Wayne O'Neill here, Member Raphael Persico,
Here.
alternate member Suzanne Zukowski, Solicitor Jordan B. Yeager.
It's Maureen Carlton
Okay.
for Jordan Yeager,
Okay.
present.
Solicitor Maureen Carlton,
Present.
Zoning Officer Keystone Municipal Services Incorporated Stephen Ware,
Present.
and
Lorraine's out tonight. She's unable to make it.
Oh, vacation.
So,
That's why I didn't get the call.
okay, next up, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 6th, 2018, please?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And also, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 4th of 2018?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, and next up is reading of the notice of zoning by Mr. Secretary.
Notice is hereby given that the Morrisville Borough Zoning Hearing Board will hold a public hearing on Monday evening, August 5th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. in the council chambers of Morrisville Municipal Building, 35 Union Street, Morrisville, Pennsylvania, in the matter of the application of Gallagher Realty Group, Limited Liability Corporation for the premises located at 43 and 45 Park Avenue, Morrisville, Pennsylvania, 19067. County tax parcels 24,009,266 and 24,009,265. Applicant is requesting the following variances for the proposed construction of a two-unit resident dwelling previously destroyed by fire. One, from section 465.13B to permit use, A4 in the R2 district. Two, variance to use A4 standards in the R2 district, except for the following: lot area per dwelling unit, lot width, front setback, and side setback. 3, from section 46538A, to allow less than the required 2 off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit. From section 46559A, to allow for reconstruction of a structure damaged more than 75% in a matter not in conformity with the district regulations. Applicant also seeks any other variance or design waivers which may be deemed necessary for approval of the project. Documents relating to this matter will be available for inspection during normal business hours at the office of the Zoning Department at Morrisville Borough Hall, 35 Union Street, Morrisville, Pennsylvania, 19067. All persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the granting of this application may be heard at the above time and place. Morrisville Zoning Hearing Board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Ware, has the notice been properly posted and advertised?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. And with that, Ms. Carlton will take off.
At this time, is there anyone, oops, I apologize. At this time, is there anyone in the audience who would like to be designated with party status? Do you need an explanation as to party status?
Yes.
Okay. If you feel that you're affected by the application and would like to participate either today or in the future, if there's an appeal, et cetera, you would approach the microphone, state your name, address, and designate or request party status.
All right, I would like to.
Okay, certainly. Feel free to come forward. Mr. McGinnis, can you allow this gentleman to?
Sure. I don't know if this is.
You know what? It is on. Yes. Thank you.
My name is Steve Carroll. I'm 51 Park Avenue. I'm directly connected to the property in question. Facing the 45, I am to the right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We're closed as to, we'll close the record as to party status. I'd like to admit into evidence board exhibits. Exhibit B1 is the application of the applicant. Exhibit B2 is the notice that was just read. Exhibit B3 is the applicable provisions of the borough zoning ordinance, particularly those that were listed in the application, as well as Article 10, Table 465-17, with reference to variances. Are there any objections to these exhibits?
No objections.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGinnis, it's all yours.
Thank you. My name is Mike McGinnis. I'm with Begley, Carlin, and Mandio here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Gallagher Realty Group. At the outset, I think we're only going to mark, or I only plan on at least marking one additional set of exhibits, and certainly I'm happy to introduce them at the outset or as I ask Mr. Fioravanti to testify to them, whatever your preference is.
Why don't we do them at the outset?
Okay.
Just so we don't have to interrupt your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this can be marked however you prefer.
And can you tell us?
Yes.
So we'll mark this as A1.
This is a view of the property. The two properties are outlined with the red box, and this is as if you're viewing the property while on Park Avenue. And I just wanted to orient the zoning hearing board because there were 4 properties. My understanding is 4 properties that were destroyed by fire approximately 2 years ago. I know last summer
In fact, I was here representing a different applicant on the other two subject properties, and I just wanted to make clear that these two properties are the end of the triplex on the rightmost portion of the property and the single-family detached dwelling, to avoid any confusion as to the specific addresses.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. So as the board correctly stated, this property, or these two properties, are 43 and 45 Park Avenue. They are located in the R2 residential district, and we're here tonight on behalf of Mr. Gallagher and Gallagher Realty with respect to 43 and 45 Park Avenue, respectively. Mr. Gallagher is seeking to develop these properties as a twin. We'll get into the specific nature of the development proposal through testimony. As the board can see in the exhibit that I provided, what was there previously was a triplex and a single-family detached residence. The triplex and the single-family detached residence were destroyed by fire completely on or about April 17th, I believe, 2017. I think, and I believe we will establish for the board tonight, that these properties are virtually impossible to develop at this point in strict coherent application and strict adherence with the particulars in the Morrisville Code of Ordinances, and we really need the relief that we're seeking tonight in order to make reasonable use of the property. The proposed lot width of both parcels is 20.64 feet. And we do think that we are going to restore these parcels to a use that is similar in nature to what was utilized previously and consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. In fact, these variances which we are seeking tonight mirror, again, almost identically the variances which were sought and granted approximately a year ago. And specifically, to reiterate for the record, the variances which we are seeking are a variance from section 465-38A to allow less than required 2 off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit. There are 4 required by the Code of Ordinances. We have 0 proposed. I would note at the outset that this 0 proposed parking spaces is entirely consistent with how these properties were utilized prior to the fire, which destroyed the parcels. We are looking for a variance from section 465-59A, which requires us to seek a variance when we're attempting to reconstruct more than 75% of a non-conforming structure, which was damaged, as both parcels were in this case. And then finally, and we'll get into why this is necessary, a variance to use the A4 standards in the R2 district, except as to the lot area per dwelling unit. Here, we are proposing a square footage for both units of 2,064 square feet, whereas 6,000 is required. Lot width, there's 50 feet required, and the proposed width for both lots is 20.64 feet. And then the front setback has a 30-foot requirement. We have 12.77 feet proposed. The side setback is a 6 feet minimum, 16-foot aggregate requirement. We have 4.64 feet proposed. I would like again to reiterate that the front setback is almost entirely identical to the prior setback and is consistent with the twins which were built adjacent to these properties. The actual residences will consist of 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and the design is to be similar for both units. We'll bring this out through testimony, but we're very confident that the properties will be designed in an attractive manner and in a manner which is consistent with the surrounding properties on Park Avenue. I have Vince Fioravani with me from Fioravani Inc. and Mark Gallagher with me from Gallagher Realty, and if it's acceptable to the board, I'd like to present Mr. Fioravani for testimony.
I'd like to swear him in. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Fioravani, please state your name for the board.
Vincent Fioravante.
All right. And what's your position with Fioravani Incorporated?
I'm the owner of the practice.
Would the board prefer he share the microphone? Is that better? Or?
All
right.
Please, yeah, it's probably better.
Okay. Mr. Fioravani, and this is certainly up to the board, I'm happy to go through Mr. Fioravani's qualifications, background, licenses, and educational experience if you think it would be warranted in this case.
No, I assume you're a PE or
Yes, I'm a licensed
AIA
PE, yes, in 4 states, licensed land surveyor. We've been in operation since 1990. Almost 2,000 projects over the last 30 years.
Okay. Are you familiar with the present project?
Yes.
Okay, how so?
We were engaged by Mr. Gallagher to put together the plot plans that are before you tonight. So we did the required land surveying and civil engineering to produce the permit plan that we filed with this application.
Okay, and what have you viewed or reviewed in preparation for your testimony tonight?
As we typically do, we'll look at the code of ordinances, the zoning ordinances, the land development or subdivision ordinances, and as well as the physical features, utilities, existing conditions of the site.
Okay. And Mr. Fioravani, I presented to the board earlier a picture of what I represented was a view of the properties as if we were standing on Park Avenue. Can you affirm upon your review of the pertinent materials if this is an accurate representation of what was here before the fire which destroyed the properties?
Yes, this photo shows the existing features of the parcels prior to the fire. When our crew showed up for the survey, the single-family dwelling was removed and the foundation was excavated out, but this picture shows what existed beforehand. The one lot, 43, was the end unit of a triplex, and 45 had a single-family dwelling erected on it.
Okay. And what's presently at the properties?
Right now, the properties are vacant, and the foundation for 45 was excavated out, so there's an excavation there.
Okay. And this might be better if you, I don't know if this detaches, but all right, thank you. Can you review maybe the plan specifically over there, briefly provide an overview for the board with respect to what we're proposing today?
Okay. The plan before you is a rendered version of the exhibits that we filed with the application for the variances. The green area is the lots. You'll know they're 100 feet in depth, rectangular in shape. Together, they're 41 feet essentially. One is smaller than the other, but a lot line adjustment is created to make the twins the same size. In terms of a site project, this is very simple. It essentially comes down to the erection of the twin dwelling on a vacant building lot. You know, the utilities are already there. Not much grading is required. In terms of drainage, the site is well drained, drains from the rear to Park Avenue. And so the site work that's involved in creating this is relatively straightforward. Again, the utilities exist and they would be reused.
What zoning district is it located in?
Located in the R2, and the proposal is use A4 in the R2.
And why is that, Mr. Fioravani?
When you look at the surrounding development and the size of the lots, it was obvious that the existing community was developed with this type of use, and the immediately adjacent lots was developed with the twin. So we felt that it would be best to develop it in concert with the surrounding area, and the use A4 would match the use that was recently approved on the adjoining lot. We even matched the setbacks and provided more of a side yard setback than the twin that we just mentioned.
Okay. We're going to go through each of the variances specifically and why we think they're necessary. Can you reiterate to the zoning hearing board the lot size of each of the two lots which we're working with tonight?
Yes, the minimum lot size in the R2 was 6,000, and what we had with the existing lot size for 43 was 1,628. The existing lot size for lot 45 was 2,500. So splitting them down the middle, we got a lot size of 2,064 square feet for each of the proposed lots.
Okay. And one of the variances which we're seeking tonight pertains to off-street parking. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And specifically, as I stated to the board at the outset, there is a requirement for 2 off-street spaces for each lot in this district. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And we don't show any, correct?
That's correct.
Can you explain why this was designed in that manner?
Yeah, the reason that we designed it that way is, again, the uses that we're replacing that were taken down by the fire didn't have any off-street parking, and we want to minimize the impervious surfaces that we create. There's also parking available on Park Avenue, and the feeling was that this proposal won't increase the parking load on the neighborhood, as essentially we're rebuilding the uses that were lost by the fire.
So the parking burden would be consistent, in your opinion, with that which was there prior to the fire in 2017?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Now, with respect to the setbacks, I stated that we're proposing a 12.77 foot front yard setback. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
For both lots?
Yes.
Okay. And a 4.64 50-foot side yard setback for both lots.
Yes, for both lots.
Okay. Can you explain why we, again, can't comply with the dimensional requirements with respect to the setbacks?
If you were to look at the R2 setbacks, the front requirement is 50 and the rear is 35, would leave you a building envelope of 15 feet. So it'd be impossible to build a dwelling in small of a building envelope. The 12.77 that we used was to match the existing setbacks of the adjoining structures.
You're familiar with the surrounding area, and you've reviewed the surrounding area and the dwellings which exist on Park Avenue in preparation for tonight?
Yes.
Do you have an opinion with respect to whether this use is consistent with other uses on Park Avenue and in harmony with the overall?
Yes, it absolutely is. And it's identical to the use that's proposed or recently built immediately adjacent.
Is there any specific concern, for example, with water on this site by the construction of these properties?
Now, stormwater really doesn't come into play in this particular instance. First of all, if you were to look at the impervious surfaces that existed prior to this proposed construction, there'd be a very small increase or maybe not even an increase. Again, when we showed up, the surfaces were already gone, so we couldn't really measure them. But from aerial photographs, you can see what pre-existed and probably about the same amount of impervious surface. So any impact either way, plus or minus, would be so small as to be insignificant. There's also the location of the site being adjacent to the river. A lot of times stormwater management districts are created differently when you're that close to a river. And normally they allow discharges to go to the river quickly as opposed to the normal practice of detaining the discharge. Because what would happen if everyone detained the discharge close to the river, they would be releasing their peaks at the same time. It would be worse. So if you're close to the receiving waters, a lot of modern ordinances will allow you to discharge your water quickly so that it will be out of the way before the rest of the discharges come from other people's basins. So the fact that it's adjacent to the river and there's not much more impervious surface, stormwater management really won't be an impact here.
Is there any reason why what we're proposing tonight would add any difficulty or additional hardship to the surrounding property owners as compared to what was at the site before burned down?
None whatsoever.
Okay. Do you have an opinion regarding whether the restrictive nature of these lots provides a hardship to Mr. Gallagher in developing them without receiving the zoning relief we're here to seek tonight?
Yes, I think the lots are unique. They're undersized. They're definitely long and narrow. They match the surrounding lots in the area for which these type of variances were granted. So I do think it matches the community and would blend harmoniously with everything that's built there.
Is there anything else you would like to highlight for the board with respect to this design or application?
Just that I think it'll match well with the surrounding area. It'll be brand new construction, and I think it'll look nice and it'll match the community.
I have no further questions. If the board has any questions for our professional.
No, I guess just one, please. Certainly the question comes up, is it viable to build a single-family dwelling on it instead of the duplex? Still understanding we need some variances even in that case. Or is that just not considered viable for the whole situation? In terms of finances, I imagine.
Well, I can have Mr. Gallagher.
Or Mr. Gallagher could, I'm sorry.
Sworn in yet. But,
I'm sorry.
And he can address that, and also I think it might be appropriate for Mr. Piovani to address from a dimensional standpoint whether it would be viable to construct the single family.
Yeah, the single family.
Well, I think regarding the feasibility of constructing anything actually on the lot, whether it's one lot or two, it would require dimensional variances, of course. You know, we talked about the building envelope being almost eliminated by the application of the setbacks and the lot area. So that would require a number of variances no matter what was built there. I guess technically you could build a single family dwelling as opposed to two if I were to combine them and say that that's a single, but I'd still need variances. I think then you would get into the situation of uses when you talk about harmony with the adjoining uses. I think you may have an issue there in terms of an acceptable use where you have a large single that's brand new next to a twin, you start to have compatibility issues in my mind. But that's more of a marketing issue or talking about the harmony with the neighborhood. I think this matches better, and I think this would be better received.
Even with two separate parcels here, if we were to build two single-family dwellings on two separate parcels, we would eliminate all side yard setbacks even in that circumstance anyway, right?
Yes, and the lots are so small for a single, it would really be difficult. Then you would have side yard setbacks on both sides, so they literally would be 10 foot wide. It'd be impossible.
I did.
Sure. I was going to, Mr. Gallagher addressed that too, but certainly, go ahead.
It's noted on your drawings, urban land occasionally flooded.
Yes.
Can you speak at all to flood zone requirements, yes. FEMA? Because now essentially we would be inflicting two families. The area has been flooded before, but...
yes, this area is contained in the FEMA flood maps. I actually have an exhibit here that I can flip over, but it shows this area is shaded. I may as well. Yes, that's the same exhibit. I have it here in larger scale as well. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Michael's handing out a smaller version of the same exhibit I have on the easel. Bucks County Planning Commission has a GIS site that they're constantly developing and updating. Shows different regions here, and as you can see, the area along Park Avenue, that's, I don't know what color we would call that. Let's call it pink, although it's probably not pink. 0.2% annual chance of flood. And if you were to look into the definition of that, that's an area that's protected from the floodplain, which is shown here in blue, by the levees that are built along Park Avenue. In this area, it's during the 100-year flood, the flooding there is like a half a foot or less. So that's an area that FEMA has studied, and this is like an area of minimal flooding, which happens to encompass the properties that we're discussing. So there is, you're adjacent to the river, so there always is a potential for the 100-year storm coming in or water backing up through the inlet grates. But actually in this area, these several lots here are not in the 100-year floodplain, but in an area, you could call it a 500-year floodplain, where they have the flooding is less than a foot deep during that type of storm.
I'd like to mark this as Exhibit A2. Thank you.
And again, just to close on that argument, is that the impervious surfaces in the pre-development and post-development here are about the same, looking at what was there before versus what's to be constructed.
I have nothing further. Do any of you gentlemen have anything? Yes? Oh, Mr. Ware?
Yeah, it appears there's a typo on your chart for the side yard setbacks. Your drawing has them at 3.64. Your chart has them at 4.64.
Up at the top, it says 4.64 here. Looking at the right
drawing to the green,
and here's
the green rendered area.
Right here is 4.64.
No, our drawing says 3.64 on it.
Yep. Okay, no, it is 4.64, and if that was corrected after it was filed.
But if it's a 17-foot wide unit, 3.64 side yard.
Oh, we have 16. This is 16 by 40.
Okay, so our plan that was submitted has been revised.
If you're looking at a 17, yeah, we have this as 16 and 4.64.
So it's currently 16?
Yes.
6.4. 17s become 16.
Oh.
So
I know that's the revised.
16.
Ours has the old
They
one.
need to submit.
This becomes, these become 4.64.
Yeah,
Right.
Which is what this,
okay.
Yep.
I too also noticed one slight typo. It is in the variances requested. Number 8, it's 8.1 from section 465-13 you have 13.8, should be 13.B
On the plan, yes.
on the plan. If that can be corrected.
Should I mark this and mark the exhibit?
That's fine. I believe that was read into the record.
It was. So if the plan can just be
And I think it's
correct.
in our application.
It is.
Okay. This is over here, right?
Okay.
No questions at this time. I'll call Mr. Gallagher for testimony briefly.
Yes. Good evening. I'm Mark Gallagher from Gallagher Realty Group. Thanks for having me. Mike's going to ask me questions. Never mind.
All right, we'll walk you through. You can go up whoever you want in a minute. You're associated with Gallagher Realty Group?
Yes.
How so?
Owner.
Okay. And you own these properties, Gallagher Realty Group?
No, I'm actually in I guess we'll call it a partnership right now with the Redevelopment Authority of Bucks County. I'm working with projects with them to bring stuff like this back to life.
What does Gallagher Realty Group do?
Basically buys and redevelops properties in the same condition and shape as this. That's basically what I've been doing since we've started, was buying beat up properties throughout Bucks County, in the Corydon area, the Bristol area, and this will be my second one in Morrisville.
Okay. And you heard a question that was directed to Mr. Fioravani earlier with respect to building a single family dwelling here. Can you explain to the board briefly why this was the plan that was settled upon for this development?
We went this direction because after I was enlightened with what happened there, the fire and the properties that were there, how the adjacent property at, 39 and 41 was redeveloped, that would be the game plan going forward, to put something similar to what's there to keep it, uniformed going forward. So that's why we went that direction.
And based upon that testimony, I can assume you also are familiar with the surrounding area and the properties and how they've been developed on Park Avenue?
Yes.
Okay. And you believe that this is consistent as well with those properties?
Yes, I do.
All right. And you heard Mr. Fioravani's testimony with respect to the size of the lot, the setbacks, and the application variances we're seeking tonight?
Yes.
All right. And to the best of your knowledge, that testimony is accurate that Mr. Fioravani gave?
Yes, sir.
All right. With respect to a timetable here, ideally, do you have any update that you can provide the board, assuming you're granted the variances tonight, for how soon you'd like to be able to build on these lots?
Once concluded with zoning, if this is all put to rest, then we could move forward. Then we would go forward with putting a set of plans together and bringing them back to the township for approvals. And the time frame on something like this, the plans would probably be 4 to 6 weeks before they could be produced, and then going through the application process and getting approved, I would say a couple more weeks, and then the project's going to be a 6 to 7 month project to build everything. So.
And then you heard me say at the outset, where I made the representation that your intent is to build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on these properties?
Yes.
Okay, for both?
Yes.
And the design for both of these is intended to be very similar?
Similar, very, very similar, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you were getting into at the outset, is there anything that you would like to explain to the board additionally with respect to this project or your intent here?
No, I think we got it. Okay. We're good.
Further for Mr. Gallagher.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, so from what I understand, then it's architectural consistency and remaining with the essential character of the neighborhood as a perception is why you've gone with the duplex design. But it's not unfeasible to put, I'm just trying to lay to rest the feasibility of getting a single family dwelling on the property. If we move aside from the perception of, architectural consistency. Is there any other rationale as to why you couldn't put, because there are other single-family dwellings on the street that have their own off-street parking and other issues that could be addressed by that sort of a design. And there may be compromises with that, understand, and variances. But just trying to run the ground here, what considerations there have been for a different design other than a duplex. Go ahead.
Right. Can I just ask one point of clarification? Are you asking if these parcels were consolidated?
If they were, understanding the lots would have to be consolidated,
Okay,
yes.
Because I think it's,
You're right. I'm sorry. I should have.
currently situated, if you look at them in isolation, it probably makes more sense to build these as a twin, but if they're consolidated, then that might be a different analysis.
Correct. Yes. I'm sorry. Should have led in with that.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
I just never really looked at it on that aspect. Is it feasible? I'm sure you could do it if it had to go that direction. Is that the direction that we're trying to go? No, I mean, we're all aware of that. But I can't honestly say, no, you couldn't. Of course you could. You probably could do it.
I think from a legal standpoint, when this was analyzed, it was analyzed with both parcels individually and saying what's the reasonable use. Obviously, we want to maximize the value for our client while being, in our opinion, consistent with the prior uses in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I think we looked at that and said, we can't do this with one lot. We can't do two separate lots with single family. It would have to be consolidated. So if we're going to mirror the fact that there were 4 residences before, and we're trying to have 4 residences here again from 39 to 45 Park Avenue, how do we accomplish that? And a twin made the most sense in that circumstance. I think that was probably the analysis.
Understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Now, are these going to be rental units, or are they going to be owned?
Owned.
Okay.
Not looking to build them for rentals.
So they'll be on the market and sold as single-family dwellings?
Yes, sir. Okay. Don't want to be labeled.
Just getting back to the possible opportunity of single-family home, given the current zoning. Even if you did not combine the lots, if you didn't change the lot line, you could put a single-family home on the larger lot and provide off-street parking on the smaller one. I appreciated the comment that the lots in the area are unique, but in my mind, this is a unique opportunity really to honor the current zoning that applies to the neighborhood. There's also reference to architectural consistency with reference to the duplex, but truly the duplex is an anomaly because there really isn't another duplex, and it's a very new structure. And if you look at the street in its entirety, there are many single-family homes. And even adjacent, we have a single-family home with off-street parking. So if that was the goal of the zoning for the street as it stands, is it not an opportunity to actually support what the borough intended for that street in the first place?
I think that question would be more up to the borough than I can't really honestly answer that question for you.
No, well, as a developer, you could answer that question in terms of developing a nice single-family home on the larger parcel and providing off-street parking on the smaller one, which would not require the lot line change.
You could most definitely probably put a single-family home there. There was one there. And I think you do have a picture of the
It was a triplex.
triplex and a single.
Obviously,
Right.
we can't.
Right. The triplex is gone. Right. Right.
We can't attach the what was on 43 Park Avenue to the twin at this point. If we were able to, we would be able to do
that and build a single family. I think the analysis is we have two parcels. The reason, I know we're here for both, but the parcels from a legal standpoint need to be looked at in isolation. What is the reasonable use for 43 Park Avenue, and what's the reasonable use for 45 Park Avenue? And if you look at them in isolation, the reasonable use for the lots is to have a similar structure to what was there previously, and we can't accomplish that unless we're going the twin route. I think that is honestly the assessment that we've made.
But if that truly is the argument, there was a single-family home there and 1/3 of a triplex. So obviously there's not enough room to build a triplex, but you certainly could accomplish a single-family residence and also get off-street parking.
If we were building one property instead of two.
No, but you wouldn't even have to combine the properties. A single person could own both lots and provide for parking.
I agree with that, but again, it's the same today, where if you look at 39, 41, 43, 45, there were 4 residences there before the fire, which burned them down. Under your proposal, we were talking about eliminating one of the residences and turning one of the parcels into basically a spot for parking. And Mr. Gallagher, I think when he was interested in developing these parcels, wanted to develop them to put 2 residences back on these parcels. And if we went with that proposal, we would be eliminating one of those residences in favor of off-street parking.
Is it strictly financial consideration that is driving the design?
Well, I think obviously I'm not going to stand here and say that finances isn't a consideration, but at the same time, I think if anyone is looking at a situation where there were residences on a property previously, you say, what is the best use of this property? I'm going to be biased because I'm a land development attorney, but I'm always going to say a better use of the property is to have a house or someone to live in rather than parking spaces. So that's my assessment. Is, that's the most reasonable use of the parcel.
Regardless of what it's zoned for.
Well, I not regardless, but I think if you look at the last 10, 15, 20 years, there were 4 residences here, and I think that was the intent. So if there were 3 residences that burned down and there was off-street parking on the 4th parcel, I think we would likely be back here saying we want to build 1 residence and off-street parking. But I think it was a simple analysis. I honestly don't think more went into it other than there were 4 parcels, there were 4 residences to maximize what makes sense for property. It makes sense to have 4 residences again moving forward, and we can't just attach 43 Park to the twin. So the only way to come up with a solution for 2 residences is to do the twin. That's not truthful.
And the prior 4 residences were non-conforming. I mean, they were constructed before the ordinance was developed, so we're in that sort of conundrum over, do we force the hand to try to, become an almost conforming single unit with off-street parking, or have the 2 dwellings? Yeah. I honestly just wanted to air it out so that nobody could say, we didn't at least ask about a single-family dwelling on that property. No, I understand. I just wanted to air that out because it's,
And I'm just being devil's advocate. But one other thing, could you speak a little bit more to the architectural aspect in terms of height considerations?
We will comply with the height requirements.
Yeah, we're not looking to go any higher than what we're at. I don't know.
I'm sure all construction code will be consistent with all our limitations and FEMA elevations and,
Right, and that was not a requested variance.
Yeah, that's not a.
We're obligated to comply.
Right. That's
correct.
code enforcement officer situation. So.
I just want one point of clarification. As far as ownership is concerned, Mr. Gallagher, you said that you are not the owner of the property.
It's still owned by the redevelopment authority.
Still owned by the redevelopment
authority.
Are you?
So they take final deed and ownership of it, and everything's cleared. Then it turns to Gallagher Realty.
So you're the equitable owner of the property right now, not the legal owner, and intend to become the legal owner. I just want to clarify because the application stated that you were the owner. So it's in the redevelopment authority presently. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you gentlemen have any other questions? No. Okay, I don't. Suzanne, are you?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you. At this point, we'd like to open up for public comment, either pro or con.
Again, Steve Carroll, 51 Park Avenue. Carroll, Carroll. I'm surprised here. I came to this meeting thinking that the property was already under ownership. I'm surprised hearing that the redevelopment authority still owns the property. There's no representative here from them. I will say, though, it was here this time last year. We had plans for the two properties. They were built. I was surprised that we are here right now and there's no plans on that board. I've been patient. It's been almost 2.5 years. All I have now from last year is no more rubble in a pit. Now I just have a pit directly next to my property. Any type of construction that is lingering or waiting on plans and variances has directly affected my property. It's preventing any type of movement on things that were on my property affected by the fire. There's a fence line, fencing that has to be removed. There's still existing foundation that has not been fully removed from the property. Now, with that being said, the idea for the twin on 39 and 41, I get it, okay? They were bought, the bank owned one, and my neighbor owned the other. Now, the other two properties in question are not under ownership, or they are in process, and I really don't understand why we are going with a twin, again, where there was a single home, and the end unit of a triplex. Now, and I'm surprised that the properties have not already been combined. Now, I don't know property law, and I don't know why, but I thought that the properties would have been combined because they were owned by the same owner. 43 and 45 were owned by the same owner. So that being said, you know, I can understand even if they don't do off-street parking, because those properties did not have off-street parking prior. Even if they were to go with a single, at least they would have a side yard where there was none before. My fence pretty much went up against within a foot of my neighbor's house. So during the fire, it was all, you know, there was nothing there. Basically, it burnt down the fence and whatnot. But anyway, here we are 2.5 years later. I'm happy that there is progress moving forward, but I'm just surprised that they would be going with a twin where there was a single family home existing, and there is a possibility that there can be more yard for a single family home. And to say that it's consistent with what is in the neighborhood, I don't think that's true, because they were the only 3 row homes, triplex, whatever you want to call it, and a single family home the rest of the way down the street. Central has a couple, but that's pretty much it. There's no, it's not consistent. That was the inconsistent part of the street. So to say that, you know, we're going to, yeah, because now there's existing new construction that's a duplex. So we're going to build another duplex because we just put one here. So we're going to change the street again to conform to a non-conforming structure that was there prior. It really makes no sense. But I will say I'm kind of torn because I am happy with progress being made. And it's really affected the neighborhood. There are new tenants in the other units, but I'm kind of surprised that at this meeting now that there is no ownership of the property and no plans to be presented of what the unit's going to look like, to say that it is consistent with what the neighborhood's supposed to be, you know. But being here last year, I mean, the variances are there. There was no off-street parking, so I really have no problem with that. But I think that there are some considerations possibly that, you know, hey, let's give these people a yard. There was no yard before. Want to be consistent with the neighborhood? There's a yard. Bring in one family. We don't need to put two families cramped together, especially if they're, what, 4 feet from the side? You know, if it's going to be central air, how are you going to get past the central air unit on the one side? Realistically, it's, you know, I don't know if it's feasible, but I don't really think taking a single family home out of the equation to put a twin in makes sense. So looking forward to a decision either way, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Can I make one, just a point of clarification?
Sure.
With respect to
Please.
the setback, and maybe Mr. Carroll's aware of it. I think looking at the plan previously, there was about a foot in terms of the side yard setback from his property or driveway from where the single family residence is. That is actually being expanded from 1 foot to 4.6 feet. I know that's not, we're not saying it's a 30-foot side yard setback, but we are expanding the setback from what actually was there with the single family residence. And then as Mr. Fioravani pointed out to me, anything with respect to the AC would be at the rear of the property, so that wouldn't be an impediment with respect to his property. And Mr. Gallagher did testify that his intent following tonight, hopefully receiving the variances we're seeking, would be to get this completed within approximately 6 to 7 months to put this to rest.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I got a question. Sure. Mr. Carroll back on?
Sure. Yes, you may.
Mr. Carroll, can you please come back up? Mr. Persko has some questioning.
You've lived in the neighborhood how long?
I purchased the property in October of 2010. We moved in January of 2011.
And you have a one-family home?
I do. I live at 51.
And your neighbors also have one-family homes going down?
Pretty much. I mean, you know, if there are two families living in one home, I don't know. But as far as I can tell, you know, consistent with the neighborhood. It's,
and how big is your lot?
My lot is 75 by 100.
You have a side yard that has a driveway?
I do have a driveway, yes.
Okay. How wide is that?
One car width, I would say 10 feet at the bottom, tapers up to the top, and it's an open driveway in the back.
Okay. 75 by what? I'm sorry.
100.
By 100.
Yeah, most of the lots in Park are 100.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I don't know if it's for you, Mr. Gallagher, or for one of the other gentlemen, but to acknowledge Mr. Carroll's comment about why isn't somebody from the Development Authority here? And part two of the question, if the application were denied, are you familiar enough with the process to speak to, would they move forward with a single-family home if that is all that's permitted? And what kind of timeline is involved in that? Or what happens with the Development Authority if this is denied in terms of their process? And I don't even know if you can answer because you're not from the Development Authority.
Development Authority's position. Maybe Mike can better than that.
No, what I can say is Mr. Gallagher, as the equitable owner, there's no requirement for the redevelopment authority to be here, as they're not the entity which would be building the properties. Mr. Gallagher would be. So he's from a standing perspective, he's the individual who filed the application, not the redevelopment authority. And he would be the person who will be moving forward with the development. So he's the proper party to be present tonight at the zoning hearing board.
So what is their role? I'm not very familiar with the Development Authority.
Their role, and I'll do the best I can with that, they acquire abandoned properties. I don't know the history behind this. I understand there was a fire, and then I guess the owner of the property, I don't know what happened to them, but they must have abandoned it and left it and had it come to this position where the county took it over and had to take, it's by eminent domain, I think is the correct term. They take possession of a property, and that's what I think the position was with this.
And I can't speak to the redevelopment authority's intent. Maybe if the zoning hearing board denied this, they would pursue some lot consolidation. I don't know. What I can say is Mr. Carroll owns a 75-foot wide property, and with the lot line change, even without the lot line change, we're talking about 25 feet and 16 and change, or 20.64 combined. There's a different calculation that goes into what you can build on those properties. If we had 75-foot wide properties, we would build single-family residences here, but we're constrained to what we have, and we're authorized to analyze each parcel independently, and I don't want to go in circles with that, but it's a completely different calculation. We work with what we have. These are properties that are created and have been approved by Morrisville Borough previously, and you know, it's our position from a legal standpoint when you look at 43 Park in isolation and 45 Park in isolation, as this board has to do legally. The question is, can we make reasonable use of each not combined, each property individually without relief tonight? And this is a residential neighborhood. They're parcels that were created for residential living, and I just am, I am insistent from a legal standpoint. Obviously, the board may disagree with me that the reasonable use for each parcel individually is a residence. And I don't know what the redevelopment authority would do if the board disagrees with that, or what Mr. Gallagher would do. We would obviously have to assess our options moving forward.
It's just on some level, part of that comment didn't make sense, because if you said you had a 75-foot wide property, like Mr. Carroll, you would build a single-family home. But here you have a third of the width of the real estate, and you want to do a duplex.
No, we want to.
It's not a duplex.
We want to build it. We have two properties. If you start operating with the very first building block of the premise being we have two parcels, and therefore there were two residences before, we want to build two residences now. The second question is, how do we bring that about? And the only answer is a twin.
That seems. I don't mean to interrupt you. That's true. You're absolutely and totally right. However, the smaller parcel was part of the other two.
Correct.
So it was three of them together.
Yep.
And the whole shebang here was before the zoning was ever passed.
Correct.
I would imagine.
That's
and
true.
The whole purpose of zoning is to bring up the area. So for us to allow the first one to be built, we had our reasons. Doesn't mean we're going to allow the second one to be built, because, as someone stated, that's not even really consistent. What's really consistent with the new zoning is a one-family home. You have more than enough to build, even if you use the smaller lot.
That's only if you, respectfully, that's only if you're looking at both lots together as opposed to individually.
Even with the smaller lot, it's I'm sorry, not the small, the bigger of the two lots that you have left.
So what would you build on 43?
You could still, like Susan said, you could still build a one-family home. You'd need variances, but you would still get a one-family home.
You're saying you would build a single family on 45, and then 43 would also have a house on it?
No.
Right.
The smaller lot, I understand. You can't use it anymore.
That is, I think, where the dispute or disagreement is here. You're 100% right, and the board can certainly do what it likes. It's in your discretion. And I agree with you as to what the point of the zoning law is, and it's to bring up the neighborhood. But what you would essentially be doing by saying we're only going to approve one property on these two lots, in my opinion, is you're making 43 valueless. I mean, it is a lot that was approved by the borough in the past for a residential use, and you can't.
It was probably never approved. It was just simply built.
Well, I'm assuming the subdivision was.
I don't think so. This probably all predates the zoning. And when the zoning came in, they came in and said, well, this is what we like this area to be.
Yeah, I'm
everybody voted on it and said, yes, this is what we'd like. Mm-hmm. And if we have a situation where we lose buildings, as much as I'm a good-hearted person, and I want you guys to earn a living and everybody to go forward, I want Mr. Carroll to enjoy his property. What if, God forbid, what if Mr. Carroll's property was to burn down and he has 75 feet? Are you going to come back with 4 units?
No, we're looking at each property in isolation. That's one parcel. We have 2 parcels here. I just think respectfully, I think it's a different analysis. We cannot develop a residence on the smaller parcel.
Which is 16 feet, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But
well,
at the same time, you're treating it as if it's a single-family home. To say that it's a lot with a house, right. But really it's only a third of a structure.
But it was a lot with the house when it was attached to the other 2.
There was a residence on that parcel.
When it was attached to the other 2.
That's correct, right. And we can't do that now.
No, you can't do that now.
So the question is, what do we do with that parcel? And this is our proposal. Otherwise, I think everyone in this room would agree, in isolation, you can't do anything on that parcel unless you're building a twin.
Unless the lots were combined and you built a larger single-family home.
But I agree. I just don't think that's the legal analysis. I think the legal analysis is each lot is viewed in isolation, and I don't think we are under a legal obligation to consolidate the lots. Our analysis is, again, there were 4 residences there. It makes sense to have 4 now, and 43 Park Avenue should be considered in terms of what you can do there. And if your assessment is the reasonable use of that property is as off-street parking, then we just don't agree. And that's I'm trying to say that diplomatically.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So,
thank you, Mr. McGinnis.
Anybody else?
Anything further from anyone?
No.
Okay.
No, I think just to not beat a dead horse, but just to explain what Mr. McGinnis said, and just for a point of clarification for everyone, is that regardless of the prior ownership of the properties, whether or not they were owned by a common owner or if they were owned by 2 different people, they are independently owned. There's no legal requirement that they have to be consolidated. They can be, or there can be requests made for consolidation, but that's not the request before the board this evening. The request is to treat them independently, and by all legal standards, they are independent, separate lots, and can be treated as such. So I just wanted that as a point of further clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess that concludes all presentations for now, and we should take recess and discuss the matter.
Thank you. So we'll adjourn. We'll be back shortly.
Back shortly.
As far as I know, it's a father owned it. They didn't have insurance. They didn't have insurance. Right. Right, so as I said, so one day, I'm keeping up on it, obviously, but one day I came over there, there was a backhoe, there was an excavator, and it was
Well,
okay.
after, what they do is they have, they actually have like they take bids on.
Right.
Okay, and then I was high bidder, so I was awarded it, and the first thing they asked me to do right now, they're they're still in the process of recording the deed and taking ownership of it themselves, where they are able to sell it. And that was the first thing they asked me to do when I was when can you go clean it up?
Right.
Okay, so
Sure.
we had dump trucks in the back.
Right.
Whatever, cleaned it up, fence it off.
Right.
And then called me a couple weeks ago, so the grass is growing, cleaned up.
Right.
Actually, you're the house to the right.
Yeah.
Okay. You get that?
Oh, yeah. So all
The
this
house
is
behind you, too, it's all melted.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a hot fire.
So my whole outlook on that whole thing when I first went there was, I think I met somebody out there who worked for the guy that built the twins next to it.
Right.
And then I got pictures of what was there, and I saw that it was a triplex, and
Right.
it was a single house or whatever. And I told somebody from the development authority, do the same thing.
Right.
Township happy, blah, blah, blah.
But like I said, I mean, realistically, the properties that were there,
Yeah.
they really were, right? So, now we're seeing this a lot where the properties that you own now, this dude was a holdout, right? He was a holdout.
Okay.
So basically, the guy that built the other two bought one off the bank and one off the other guy. Or they rebuilt his section, and then I believe he sold it. But anyway, he made an offer for both of those properties. Don't call me no more.
But because he could have built them all at one time and it would have been done.
Realistically, because he held out, the next person's 43.
Right.
Because you have 3 units, now you took down to 2, and you left this little sliver here. What are you supposed to do,
Yeah.
Really, so, it's...
I didn't even, like, the board asked, I didn't even look at it and put it a single on there. Yeah, you put a single on there.
Right.
Dollars and cents, I don't know what the difference would be. I'd have to sit down and figure it out.
Yeah, if anything, I know you have to because of, 2 properties, but, even if they say, well, we'd like to pay a single, what about a double? Like, one on top of the other, if you wanted to have a 2-family.
Right. Well, I know, like, the one woman and a lot of people do address a twin as a duplex all the time.
Right.
When you say duplex, that puts that mindset in your head of rental.
Right.
And it's not a rental property. You're looking to build a twin. I always say, try to get that straight because that mindset, that's duplex, rental, tenants, and you're doing a side-by-side for a twin. Right. Single family dwellings connected.
Right. Yeah, the guy that had made the offer, young shares, Paul Davis. I believe the owner of Paul Davis is the one that built the other one. Right. Because he was here last year. Right. And they just finished the other one back in April. People started moving back in April. It was August. They started building in September, October. Listen, everything's great. I'm happy that at least somebody's now maintaining the property.
Doing something.
Really, because it's been 2.5 years.
Yeah, I see you ready, but it's been sitting like that.
But we're at the point now, like,
I should have somebody in their driveway like that.
Yeah.
Wash out. The guy eyed him up. I said, "We know, buddy." There was a cover. We covered him back up.
All right, cool. I appreciate it.
I was like, "Get out of here." Yeah, your car burned.
Oh yeah, so I had a garage back there. The garage. I'm a mechanic. I had my tools in there. Parts. I lost all of them. The Mercedes in the driveway.
Did you guys have to move out of there?
No. Thankfully, we did.
I didn't know if that your house was occupied or not.
Yeah,
Not that I haven't been up there at all.
I'm there. I do own another home now, so I'm in the process of cleaning it up, and I'm probably gonna have rent it for a while, but it's realistically, any tenant's better than the tenants had before. It's really, and really.
So I said, I don't want to be a landlord. I started buying in Pottstown 15 years ago, and when I bought for next to nothing, on the equitable standpoint, I'll buy something for 30, 40, 50 grand. It's worth I wasn't wanting to bring that up.
it makes sense. But now I got 30 minutes.
Yeah, right. It's funny because you said you were in Croydon. I mean, that's what we just bought, you know.
I like Croydon.
I've
been over at Dork over there. I've gone a lot.
Yeah, we like our neighborhood. You know, we're more on Sycamore.
Which house was that?
I did the big one.
I built,
There's three and at the end.
Chris Levin just built that.
Okay.
Is that what you bought, one of them?
No. Mine's in the middle of the block. I'm a 500 block.
And if you come back to the 551, the house.
Okay, so that might be 2 doors down from me.
I just did that.
Okay.
I just finished that, and I think it's a Spanish kid.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's why that was 2 doors down.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful home.
That was the weirdest looking house.
It was like a brown house or something.
Had a roof like this.
Yeah.
It had half an upstairs.
Yeah.
So we took that down.
Because we were looking at the pictures, you know, my girlfriend's like, there's the house. I'm like, the house next to us is fairly new. Within 2 years, they had just built that one.
2 on Sycamore. The other one I did was a rehab. So on the outside, the white there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, she loves. I'm like, listen, I can't get some better practice. Honestly, for the most part, everybody's been cool. Listen, a blue collar town.
It's like anywhere else.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I mean, like, I hope this works out where it doesn't piss you off or whatever.
No, realistically, I mean, I am happy, but I'm just surprised that I would have thought there would be plans for a home. Like, okay, this is what we're going to be looking at.
On mine, and then since you're talking about it on mine, for me, for your architect makes a plan before it's approved.
Yeah, sure, I understand that. When we put money into something, you gotta make it back. No, I get it.
Everybody's busy, and I mean, just like this. This has been going on. This was March.
Right.
They had the when I presented my bid, and then they told me I was high bidder. I had to do a deposit, and then they basically, you know, until it's all recorded, I can't own it.
Right.
But I can start doing what I did. I mean, they said they go clean it up. Okay, it's yours. You still want it, right? I said, yeah. Move forward with it, so I cleaned it. Do what they want.
Yeah, they sent me a date because my rates were getting a little high. Yeah, I'm not trying to be that guy either, you know. But now I got my tree guy over there. I got to cut that tree down. You see the size of that tree I got in the yard.
I know the one that was in my yard.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like half the stuff from what they built next door wound up in there. A lot of it looked like a lot of the concrete.
Because the tree that they pulled out, that was September. It's probably going on 2 years they pulled that tree out. That was about 20 feet higher than the one I got. And mine's probably about 70, 80 feet. You know, but that was a sycamore. Like the whole neighborhood's sycamore, you know? And that thing used to drop limbs all the time. I thought that was going to be the way those houses went out. The tree was going to come down and flatten them all. I mean, I didn't anticipate a fire taking care of it.
I couldn't believe what I saw because I saw the before pictures, and then the second time I was there, I noticed the property behind their side was still all fire.
Oh yeah, it was hot. I mean, you see how far mine is. You know, it melted the siding clean off. I mean, thankfully it had siding underneath it, so that whoever resided it before was vinyl.
Right.
So I mean, it just melted. It looked like.
I didn't know that you had a garage yet.
Yeah. Had a garage. I mean, everything was a total loss.
Why did it have 4 or 5 years?
No, it's something moving forward because it's been a shit mess.
Well, and to basically, I'm looking to do with what's there, similar to. I was looking at a little bit different of a design, but not less than what's there, just something.
Right.
And I guess the best thing is to do make it as close as possible, similar.
Right.
And there's like,
the biggest thing was the middle unit. I mean, that guy, he was stuck.
So the single home in that lot was owned by
99%. Yeah. So.
But it was a single home, and
the
end of the twin,
right?
And the triangle.
Correct. Yeah, so when I moved in there, I've been there going on 10 years now, right? Just under 10, but anyway. She lived next door on this same door, and there with her, and then they had family members. It was like 10 of them in the end unit. 10 of them. Yeah. I mean, and then they lived in the middle one, and then there was like 2 tenants in between because I believe they were renting it out. I haven't seen them too much. I mean, they come and go, but they seem younger. You know, I don't know what they're. Right. I didn't get a chance to walk through them. They were one's 11 square foot, one's 12. And where are you? 16?
I'm trying to get. I thought I was like a 700 square foot.
That's consistent. I mean, realistically, there are some small homes on Clark, you know, realistically, you know, a couple little bungalows and whatnot. You know, there's one house that looks like it's
Mark, can I steal you for like 2 minutes?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
No, seriously, I've thought about that a few times. I could sit at home and just sit there and do it all remotely.
Well, whatever the glitch they had today was the remote stuff.
Yeah,
The laptop stuff.
The other stuff, yeah. So
It's all fixed. All fixed. So what's his name? I think was
coming in Martin to do police, Micah's and my laptop.
Well, he has to do your portal, so.
And my portal, yes.
Right.
My portal. Kept saying.
This is what I call it, Micah. Being laid over and then there's one guy sitting all alone about it. In the front. No. Oh, absolutely. Right, absolutely. That's not required. Right. I'm sure it is.
I did it for 30 years.
I know a little bit that. You want to party status? That whole strip.
No. City. Somebody came down, we're going to bid out. So we did this.
Downstairs. You know where the restrooms are, the soda machines down there?
Yeah.
The restrooms are water box right there. Now, follow. It's dark down there, though, probably. Don't fall. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I know you can't have me, I'm saying, I said you have to be postponed.
Everything
has to be redone.
And if you have a
Right,
five,
there's a time.
if you have a 5:30 board, and when the board show up, and there's a tie, the applicant leaves. 2 and 2, the applicant leaves. There's really not really a choice, really. If you can see you, it's a file, or you can wait and come back next month, you have a form, or something like that.
If this meeting was done by before 8, I would have been able to have, she had made dinner already, so I was going to go there and have dinner.
Oh, hey, I don't know about that. We have provisions up here.
We almost had a second.
Yeah, it will be in the.
That meeting should last 15 minutes.
Right.
For a sign.
The digital sign, that's an issue with the high school.
Yeah, look, it's-
The senior center.
Oh,
The
no,
gas station area.
No, they was in there for that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the district court has one right next to
Yeah.
it. Oh.
They only have the stuff that they email out.
Not as big as yours.
Well, nothing.
Is it still Bob Wharton, Chairman, Dr. Wharton?
Lyman? It may be that sounds
He's pretty good.
familiar. But we don't have the stuff that really comes in at the last minute.
Of course. Have you done one there yet?
Nope. Did the first time hearing board last week. That was, they haven't had a first hearing board since the start of the year, which looked like. So they had to do their reorganization too in July.
Yeah, Mr. Carroll, if you ever want to come into the building department and see the building plans for the two that were built, or these ones that
Well,
are
once
submitted,
these are
when they go through zoning, they're public record. if you're-
Yeah, I saw the ones, I was here for the zoning for the last time, and that's why I was surprised, I mean,
They don't usually do building plans until after they get.
No, because if they don't get their variance,
Right,
then
They're
they're wasting
wasting
our money.
$100,000.
Right.
right, so I think what, I don't know if the owner built the other ones, the one, Paul Davis.
Yeah, Davis
Right,
was
so
very.
he had to build the other ones, so he had to have a couple variances, but he already had to have a building plan, because he's building for insurance purposes.
Well,
You're
that's-
building the one unit.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, well, you're rebuilding this one, you're rebuilding this one, here's everything one else. You know, that's why, kind of, not knowing how it really goes, kind of like, oh, well, that's how it was. From here, and see new plans and stuff like that, but yeah, this is a little bit of a longer
Well,
process.
this is different because it went through the RDA.
Right.
But those are public, if you
Yeah.
see the zoning officer, you can always make an appointment with him to come in. and
Yeah, we can pull them out.
Give her
and
the
look at
existing
them.
building
And it
plans,
should be, if they get approved.
or the ones that were
Get
built,
going as fast as possible. Sure.
or for these, once they come
Yeah.
in, you're welcome to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are going to be larger than the other twins, if these are two
Right.
more square footage.
Right, which is good. I mean,
Yeah, it's great.
realistically, I mean, we'll be bringing the neighborhood back, you know. Just right, I mean, realistically, what happened was when the other unit was a holdout, you took that twin, triplex, whatever you want to call it, and now you condense it down to two, you're really kind of stuck with what you do.
Well, there you are, but see, they were separate lots that have to have the same owner.
Right.
They're not merged.
Right.
Sometimes it works.
Little sliver.
Sometimes they can be nice.
You know,
There's not many options.
You want to amend your position friendly for when they come back before they vote?
No, I don't think that was, you know, I'm not against the product, you know, I'm definitely not. I thought that, you know, there was a single there, I thought a single would go back, but, you know, listen, it didn't have it had off the parking, or it did not have off the
No,
parking,
no.
right, so, you know, and there's no houses on one side. You can blame them,
Why
twice.
say a mobile home with a skinny lot?
16 foot.
Yeah.
Quadrupling your side yard setback. 400% improvement.
You know, that the previous home was, we pretty much shared that line, I mean, her house was right there.
Is that fence that's still up on the property line, was that from the
So the chain link fence, that was there, but I had had a wood fence on my side. So I didn't see that until the fire perked up the fence, and I realized how long that chain link went all the way through. Realistically, it could, I don't know.
I haven't been down there in a while, but I just assumed that was your fence. I don't know what's ever happened.
I mean, the house was close, you know, there was a little access between the properties, you know. They didn't have a yard either.
I wasn't trying to talk over people.
Sorry. No, my bad. I worked at the courthouse as a law enforcement person. I remember as a reporter for the judge. Left. Slow down. Don't talk over people. If you're coming to court and you're talking over people, I'm going to be so angry at you. Well, I try to keep that in mind.
She texted me, why did you answer
It's difficult sometimes.
No, my wife's tough now. My daughter's tough now.
Yep.
My wife's been down the shore with my son, and my daughter's been in bed finishing up school, and now they're both coming up. Now I'm gonna have two. I had a break for a while. They're all at the other
Constantly. I called you about.
Yeah.
Did you call? He went to the police and the police said, we have enough hours.
Oh.
So then.
Don't they like once or twice a year go out for people interested in getting on the June list?
So you know what?
That's how
Right.
Does the ordinance say how somebody uses it?
It just says you go in and make an application. But you meet the Paul does it annually, he says it for
Yeah.
you meet
Yeah, a lot of them.
the requirements.
So on any given year, you could have a different combination of scriptures.
Yes.
Yeah, sounds like the way it should be.
Everything around here is like root
Oh, your seat. I'm sorry.
You're gonna get your gum and your phone?
No.
You can go back in there.
Yeah, I'll go back and get it. My brother keeps calling me. I told him I'll call him when the meeting's up.
I don't think they had air conditioning down here.
Okay, everyone, we're prepared to reconvene at this time.
Good evening. The variance of the applicant Gallagher Realty Group LLC is approved as to the variances requested, specifically from section 465.13B to permit use A4 in the R2 district, variance to use A4 standards in the R2 district, except for the following: lot area per dwelling unit, lot width from setback and side setbacks. From section 465.38A to allow less than the required 2 off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit, and from section 465.59A to allow for a reconstruction of a structure damaged more than 75% in a manner not in conformity with district regulations. These are subject to the following conditions, which shall be limited to a request to correct the plans as noted in the testimony. The project shall be carried out and the use shall be conducted in a manner consistent with the applications, testimony, evidence, and representations of the applicant and its representatives at this hearing. Receipt of all permits and approvals from any agencies having jurisdiction over the same to the extent applicable. Applicant shall pay all borough expenses related to this application to the extent not already paid. And finally, the applicant shall comply with the rules, regulations, and ordinances of the Borough of Morrisville, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the United States government, and particularly with the Borough Zoning Ordinance and Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance of the Borough of Morrisville, unless otherwise waived. Does the applicant accept these conditions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion to approve or deny application with statement of conditions?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay. Secretary took it.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And just a couple of cleanup things that I have to
Yes.
read into the minutes, that the board does has 45 days to prepare a written decision. The written decision with findings of fact and facts and conclusions of law will be mailed to the applicant and every other party, specifically Mr. Carroll. An appeal may be filed in the Court of Common Pleas of Bucks County within 30 days of the written decision. If no appeal is filed, the decision of this board becomes final. And finally, the next
Thank you.
meeting,
And the next meeting is Monday, September 5th.
Tuesday, September 3rd.
Oh, Tuesday, September 3rd. I'm sorry, 2019.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I approve.
And Ralph seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.